Candle, the last guest at Greystone Manor, Part 1. It was the sort of night that made you question the wisdom of ever leaving London. Rain lashed against the car windows, and the road that wound up to Greystone Manor seemed to vanish into blackness. Inspector Harold Bennett pulled his coat tighter as the driver slowed to a crawl. "Can't see a bloody thing," the man muttered. "Are you sure they're expecting you tonight, sir?" "Oh yes," said Bennett dryly. "A murder doesn't usually wait for better weather." The driver gave a nervous laugh. "Murder, sir?" But Bennett didn't reply. He was staring through the misted glass at the faint outline of the manor, vast, grey, and foreboding, with its tall chimneys stabbing into the night sky. Greystone Manor had belonged to the Harrington family for generations, though lately its glory had faded. Now it was the home of Sir Reginald Harrington, an aging widower known for his sharp tongue and sharper business dealings. Bennett had received a telegram that afternoon, urgent. "One of my guests dead. Come at once. Reginald Harrington." No further explanation. No details. Only that. The guests at dinner. When Bennett arrived, the house was ablaze with light, a strange contrast to the storm outside. A butler opened the heavy oak doors. "Inspector Bennett, sir. Sir Reginald is expecting you in the drawing room." Bennett removed his hat and stepped into the warmth. The scent of polish and cigar smoke hung in the air. In the drawing room, a group of 6 people turned to look at him. Their faces told him everything: fear, curiosity, and something else, calculation. Sir Reginald, tall and thin as a walking stick, stood by the fireplace. "Ah, Bennett. Finally. A dreadful business, dreadful. Poor Arthur gone just like that." "Arthur," said Bennett, setting down his briefcase. "Arthur who?" "My nephew. Arthur Wells. Found dead not an hour ago in the library." Bennett's eyes flickered across the room. 6 guests. 7 including Sir Reginald. One of them was dead, and one of them, almost certainly, was a killer. The guests. Sir Reginald made introductions with shaking hands. "This is Miss Eleanor Drake, my late wife's companion and something of a fixture here." Eleanor, a severe woman in her 50s with the posture of a governess, gave a curt nod. "Dr. Samuel Kent, local physician and family friend." A balding man with spectacles and a too smooth smile. "Colonel Hugh Mercer, retired, served in India with my brother." The colonel, broad and ruddy-faced, saluted slightly with his glass of brandy. "Mrs. Beatrice Langley, my neighbor. And her daughter, Clara." The mother was overdressed, dripping in pearls. The daughter, pale and pretty, looked as though she wished to be anywhere else. "And lastly," Sir Reginald sighed, "Mr. Grampairs, my solicitor." Bennett nodded to each in turn. "Thank you. I'll want to speak with all of you before the night is out. The body in the library. The library was at the far end of the west wing, a room lined with dark bookshelves and portraits of grim ancestors. Arthur Wells lay slumped in an armchair near the fire, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. No sign of a struggle. No blood. Just a faint smell, bitter, chemical. Bennett leaned closer. "Poison," he murmured. Dr. Kent adjusted his spectacles. "That's what I thought, Inspector." There was brandy in his glass, untouched now, but perhaps laced with something. Cyanide, perhaps. Hard to tell. "Who found him?" "I did," said Miss Drake sharply. "I came to fetch a book and saw him like this. I called Sir Reginald at once." Bennett glanced at the decanter on the side table. Only one glass. Did anyone else drink brandy tonight? The colonel spoke up. We all did, Inspector. A toast before dinner. But Arthur poured his own afterward. Said he needed a stronger drink for a weaker heart. Bennett scribbled a note. Poured own drink. Possible self-administered poison or not. He turned to the butler, who had silently appeared at the door. Who had access to the library this evening? Everyone, sir. The door is never locked. Bennett sighed. Of course it isn't. A house full of secrets. As the storm raged outside, Bennett began his first round of questions. Each guest had a story, and none quite fit. Miss Drake insisted she had been in the music room all evening. Dr. Kent claimed he had been checking the weather barometer in the hallway, a flimsy excuse if ever there was one. Mrs. Langley was gossiping about the Colonel's scandalous past. And Clara said she'd gone upstairs to rest, though her hands trembled when she spoke. Sir Reginald himself seemed less shocked than inconvenienced. Arthur was a fool, he muttered. Always pestering me for money. I told him just last week that I was cutting him out of the will. Ah, said Bennett softly. That's rather important, sir. The old man blinked. What do you mean? Bennett smiled thinly. It means, Sir Reginald, that you've just given half this room a reason to kill your nephew. The lights flickered as thunder cracked overhead. Someone, Mrs. Langley, perhaps, gasped. Bennett turned slowly to face them all. In my experience, he said, murder is rarely as tidy as poison in a glass. The truth is always messy. And someone here, I promise you, knows exactly why Arthur Wells is dead. Part 2. The clock on the mantel struck 10. The sound echoed through the manor, mingling with the storm outside. Inspector Bennett took his seat at the head of the long dining table, where the guests now gathered once more, pale, shaken, yet pretending at composure. He set his notebook on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, we will go one by one. Tell me where you were this evening, what you saw, and what you know of Arthur Wells. Please, no dramatics, I've had quite enough of those already tonight. A nervous titter from Mrs. Langley broke the silence. Inspector, must we? It's all so dreadful. I'm afraid we must, said Bennett calmly. Murder doesn't resolve itself. Miss Eleanor Drake. Miss Drake was the first to sit opposite him. She folded her hands tightly in her lap, bony, precise, a woman who had built her life around control. I was in the music room, she said crisply. I play the pianoforte most evenings after supper. I heard nothing unusual until I entered the library. Bennett studied her. No quarrels with the deceased? Certainly not. I barely tolerated the man. He was vulgar and constantly mocking Sir Reginald behind his back. Mocking him how? He used to say the old man would die clutching his account books. Hardly respectful. Bennett raised an eyebrow. And yet, he was to inherit nothing. Miss Drake's eyes flickered. Sir Reginald told me as much. Arthur had already squandered 2 fortunes. I dare say the announcement was long overdue. Then perhaps overdue enough for Arthur to do something desperate. She stiffened. If you mean suicide, Inspector, Arthur lacked the courage. He preferred to make others suffer, not himself. Interesting, Bennett murmured. You seem to have known him well. Too well, she replied coldly, and rose before he could dismiss her. Colonel Hugh Mercer. The colonel entered with his chest puffed out, as though marching into battle. He sat, placed his brandy on the table, and looked Bennet straight in the eye. Ghastly business, Inspector. Dashed unpleasant. Arthur wasn't he much of a fellow, but he didn't he deserve this. You knew him well, Colonel. Met him here a dozen times. Always had some scheme or another, wanted to invest in tea plantations, if you can believe it. Said I had contacts in India. He snorted. All nonsense, of course. Did you lend him money? The colonel hesitated. A small sum. £50. Promised to repay it last month. Never did. So you were angry? Angry? The colonel frowned. No, no, not angry. Disappointed, perhaps. But I'm not the sort to poison a man over £50. True, said Bennet mildly. But perhaps over something else. What the devil do you mean? Bennet opened his notebook. It seems Arthur kept a diary. In it, he mentioned you several times and a certain Mrs. Langley. The colonel went scarlet. Confounded gossip. That boy had no right. So you and Mrs. Langley were close. Purely social. She's a widow, and I, well, companionship, you know. Nothing improper. Of course, said Bennet, though his tone suggested otherwise. Mrs. Beatrice Langley. Mrs. Langley swept into the chair with a dramatic sigh, her perfume announcing her arrival before she spoke. I do hope you're not going to suggest I had anything to do with this dreadful event, Inspector. Not at all, said Bennet pleasantly. Unless you give me reason to. She fluttered her eyelashes. I'm sure I shan't. He smiled thinly. Let us begin, then. You knew Arthur Wells? Oh, quite. Charming man, when he wished to be. He was visiting Sir Reginald often these past months. Said he was helping him settle family affairs. Family affairs, Bennet repeated. Did he ever mention a will? Her eyes darted just for a moment. Perhaps. I don't quite recall. Mrs. Langley, said Bennet softly, I think you recall quite well. She exhaled. Oh, very well. Arthur said Sir Reginald intended to change his will again that certain people might benefit. He hinted rather broadly that I was one of them. Were you? She gave a tinkling laugh. I do hope so. Sir Reginald is such a dear man. Bennet looked at her sharply. And your daughter Clara? The laughter died. Clara has nothing to do with this. Perhaps not, said Bennet. But I think she knows more than she lets on. Clara Langley. Clara sat opposite him like a frightened bird. Her hands were clasped tightly, her gaze fixed on the tablecloth. Miss Langley, Bennet began gently, you told me you were upstairs resting. Is that correct? Yes, she whispered. Can anyone confirm that? She hesitated. No. I was alone. And yet, Bennet said, flipping through his notes, the maid reports she saw you coming down the main staircase at 9:30 just before the body was discovered. Clara's eyes widened. I went for some air. The storm frightened me. Air? Bennet asked, his tone mild. In a thunderstorm? She swallowed hard. You don't understand. I heard voices in the library. Arguing. Whose voices? I don't know. One was Arthur's. The other? She hesitated. I think it was Miss Drake. Bennet leaned forward. You're certain? She nodded. I'm not sure what they argued about, but Arthur sounded angry. He said something like, "You'll regret crossing me, Eleanor." Miss Drake's name, spoken so softly, seemed to linger in the room like a ghost. Dr. Samuel Kent. The doctor took his seat with unhurried ease. Terrible night for it, Inspector. But I dare say you'll make quick work of it. Always admired your efficiency. Let us see if that admiration holds, said Bennet. You examined the body. Cause of death. Signs of cyanide poisoning, as I mentioned. Quick, painful, but tidy. No signs of struggle or external wounds. Tidy indeed, Bennet murmured. And who had access to cyanide? The doctor smiled faintly. Half the county, I expect. Gardeners use it to kill pests. There's a jar in Sir Reginald's tool shed, if you're interested. I am. Was it locked? Not to my knowledge. Then anyone here could have taken it? Quite, the doctor agreed. But I assure you, Inspector, I had no reason to. Perhaps not, Bennet said. But you seem remarkably calm about the whole affair. Dr. Kent's smile didn't waver. A physician sees death often enough to grow accustomed to it. Yes, Bennet replied softly. But not to murder. Sir Reginald. When Bennet finally turned to Sir Reginald, the old man was staring into the fire, brandy in hand. You've questioned them all, he asked. For now. Find your killer. Not yet. But I've found motive enough for 3 murders, at least. Reginald gave a grim chuckle. You'll get nothing from them, Bennet. They're all liars. Every last one. Perhaps, said the inspector, but so are you. The old man's head snapped up. What did you say? You told me you cut Arthur out of your will last week. Yet your solicitor, Mr. Pearce, confirmed that the change hadn't been signed. Meaning Arthur still stood to inherit everything. Reginald's jaw tightened. Pearce had no right. Oh, he had every right, Bennet interrupted. Because now I must ask, Sir Reginald, who benefits most from Arthur's death? For the first time that night, the old man's composure cracked. His hand trembled as he set down his glass. Outside, the thunder rolled again, long, low, and ominous. A note in the library? It was near midnight when Bennet returned to the library. The room was quiet now, the fire dying in the grate. He knelt beside the chair where Arthur had been found, studying the carpet. Something caught his eye, a scrap of paper, half burned at the edge, fallen beneath the chair. He lifted it carefully. A torn note, the ink smeared by brandy, but still legible enough to read, "Meet me in the library at 9. It's time the truth came out." No signature. Bennet looked at the clock on the mantel, stopped at 9:17. He exhaled slowly. Someone had met Arthur Wells that night, and someone had silenced him forever. Part 3. Morning never came easily to Greystone Manor. The storm had quieted, but the house remained cloaked in grey, as though the very walls had absorbed the night's unease. Inspector Bennet had not slept. He sat in the library once more, the note still on the table before him. Meet me in the library at 9. It's time the truth came out. Whoever wrote it had lured Arthur Wells to his death. The butler speaks. At 7 o'clock, Bennet summoned the butler, Mr. Graves, a tall, spectral man whose loyalty seemed carved into his bones. "You've served this family long?" Bennet asked. 42 years, sir, Graves replied. Since Sir Reginald's father's day. Then you know everyone here well enough to notice when something's amiss. The butler inclined his head. Indeed, sir. Bennet slid the note across the table. Recognize the handwriting. Graves studied it. No, sir. Though it resembles Miss Drake's some with the same tight loops. Bennet made a mark in his notebook. And last night did you see anyone enter the library before 9? Graves hesitated. Yes, sir. Miss Drake, at precisely 9 o'clock. Anyone else? He nodded slowly. Mr. Pearce, the solicitor. He came down from the study just after Miss Drake left. Interesting, Bennet murmured. And Arthur Wells. He came down at 9:15, sir, alone. Bennet leaned forward. So Miss Drake and Mr. Pearce were both here before the victim. And you're quite sure of the time? I am, sir. The hall clock chimed as Miss Drake passed. The solicitor's secret. Mr. Graham Pearce was not pleased to be questioned again. He was a small man, neat as a pin, with an air of self-importance that seemed to grow the more uncomfortable he became. Mr. Pearce, Bennet began, you were seen near the library around 9 last night. The man adjusted his cufflinks. Coincidence, Inspector. I was merely retrieving documents from the study. And afterward, I returned to my room. You didn't see Arthur Wells? No. Bennet produced the half-burned note. Recognize this. Pearce went pale. Where did you get that? In the library, beside the victim's chair. He hesitated. It looks familiar. Perhaps because you wrote it? Pearce's eyes darted toward the door. Inspector, this is absurd. Is it? Bennet leaned forward. The handwriting matches yours, Mr. Pearce. And according to the butler, you were there just before the time of death. I only meant to speak with him. Pearce blurted. Arthur found out something about Sir Reginald's affairs and he was threatening to expose it. Expose what, exactly? The solicitor hesitated, his lips tightening. That's privileged information. Bennet's voice hardened. Not when it leads to murder. Pearce exhaled shakily. Very well. Sir Reginald has been hiding the extent of his debts. The estate is nearly bankrupt. If that were to become public, the family name would be ruined. Arthur threatened to tell everyone unless Reginald restored him in the will. So Arthur blackmailed his uncle. Yes. And you, Mr. Pearce, decided to silence him. No. He snapped. I went to dissuade him, nothing more. When I arrived, he wasn't there. I left. That's the truth. Bennet studied him for a long moment, then said quietly, You're lying. But I'll let you sit with it a while. An unexpected witness. Just as Bennet was preparing to leave, a quiet voice spoke from the doorway. Inspector Bennet. It was Clara Langley, her eyes wide but resolute. There's something I must tell you. He gestured for her to sit. Go on. I didn't just hear voices last night. I saw someone in the library after Arthur went in. Who? She swallowed. The doctor. Dr. Kent. Bennet froze. You're certain? Yes. I was on the landing. The lightning flashed and I saw his reflection in the glass. He was standing over Arthur's chair. Did you see what he was doing? She hesitated. It looked like he was pouring something into the glass. Dash dash. The doctor cornered. Bennet found Dr. Kent in the breakfast room, sipping tea as though nothing had happened. "Doctor," he said lightly, "you work remarkably well on little sleep." "Habit of the trade," Kent replied. "You look as though you could use a tonic yourself." "I'll pass," said Bennet. "Tell me, why were you in the library after 9 last night?" Kent's smile faltered. "Who told you that?" "Let's just say someone saw more than they were meant to." He sighed. "Very well. I was there briefly. Arthur asked to see me. Said he felt unwell after dinner." "And did you give him anything?" "A mild sedative," Kent said smoothly. He seemed agitated. "I thought rest might do him good." "What sort of sedative?" The doctor hesitated. "Bromide mixture. Perfectly harmless. Except he's dead." "That had nothing to do with me." "Perhaps. But you neglected to mention this visit earlier." Kent's gaze hardened. "Because I knew how it would look. And you're proving me right." "Tell me," said Bennet, "who had access to your medical bag last night?" "No one. It never leaves my side." "Except," Bennet said quietly, "when you went to the library?" Dash dash. Miss Drake's confession. By noon, the manor had grown tense, silent, the kind of silence that waits for something to break. Miss Drake was found in the conservatory, standing by the rain-streaked windows. Her usual composure had cracked, her eyes were red, her hands trembling. "Miss Drake," Bennet said gently, "you were seen in the library before 9. She turned sharply. "Yes. I went to meet Arthur." "So you admit the note was yours?" "Yes. I wrote it." "Why?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He was threatening to ruin Sir Reginald. Said he'd expose things that should never be spoken of." "What things?" She looked away. "Family matters. Private matters." Bennet's tone softened. "Miss Drake, if you're protecting someone, now is the time to tell me." Tears welled in her eyes. "Arthur was blackmailing Sir Reginald over something that happened years ago, something terrible. I begged him to stop. But he only laughed. Said it would make him rich. And then I left. I swear it, Inspector. He was alive when I walked out." "Did you see anyone else near the library?" She hesitated. "Yes. I heard the doctor's voice. But I didn't see him." Dash dash. The hidden ledger. That afternoon, Bennet returned to Sir Reginald's study. He had a feeling, the kind that always came just before a discovery. The desk drawers were locked, but a key hung conveniently on a hook by the mantel. Inside the bottom drawer, beneath stacks of yellowed papers, he found a small leather ledger. He flipped it open and froze. Inside were entries in 2 different handwritings. Sir Reginald's neat and angular, and another, shakier, signed Arthur Wells. The most recent page read, "Paid Dr. Kent £500. Discretion assured." No mention to Reginald. Bennet sat back slowly. "Discretion assured," he murmured. "That's never good." Dash dash. Confrontation. Bennet gathered them all once more in the drawing room. 6 faces stared back, weary, frightened, and desperate. He stood by the fireplace, the ledger in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "Arthur Wells was not killed by chance. His death was the result of blackmail and fear. Someone here paid Dr. Kent for his silence. And that silence ended last night. Dr. Kent's face drained of color. That ledger means nothing. Oh, it means quite a lot, Bennet interrupted. You were being paid to conceal something about Arthur's dealings. Perhaps something medical. Kent swallowed. It wasn't he what you think. I think, said Bennet quietly, that Arthur discovered something about you. The doctor's composure cracked. He came to me months ago. Said he needed a favor. He'd gotten into debt, gambling. Wanted me to falsify his uncle's medical records to make it appear Sir Reginald was unfit to manage the estate. Said he could then take control himself. And you agreed? I refused. But then he threatened me, said he'd reveal that I'd once lost a patient through negligence. So yes, I took his money to keep quiet. But I didn't kill him. Bennet eyed him coldly. Then who did? The doctor stared at the floor. If I had to guess, someone who had more to lose than I did. The photograph. As the guests dispersed, Bennet noticed something glinting behind the clock on the mantel, a small silver frame, fallen face down. He lifted it. A faded photograph of a young woman smiling, radiant, and a man beside her. Arthur Wells. But written on the back, in delicate handwriting, to my dearest Eleanor, forever yours, A. Bennet smiled grimly. Well, he murmured, that explains quite a lot. Inspector Hale sat alone in the drawing room of Ravenscroft Manor. The rain had stopped, leaving a soft mist curling around the windows. The fire crackled, and beside it sat Edward Ravenscroft, his face pale but strangely calm. Inspector, Edward began, I suppose you know everything now. I do, Hale said quietly. But I'd rather hear it from you. Edward's hands trembled slightly as he poured himself a glass of whiskey. My father built this estate with pride. But he also built secrets into its walls. My sister, Margaret, was never meant to inherit Ravenscroft. The will clearly favored me. But when father died suddenly, Margaret claimed there was a new will, one giving her everything. She said she found it hidden in father's study. He sighed, staring into the amber liquid. I knew it was a forgery. Father would never have done that. So, I confronted her here, in this very room 2 nights before her wedding to Dr. Linley. She laughed in my face and told me the fortune was hers now. Did you kill her? Hale asked. Edward looked up sharply. No. But I wanted to. I stormed out. The next morning, she was gone. Everyone assumed she'd left to prepare for the wedding in town. But I knew something was wrong. He leaned forward, his eyes haunted. You've seen the portrait in the hall, the one with Margaret's reflection in the mirror. There's a mark just beneath the frame. Behind it, is a hidden compartment. I discovered it last week. Inside was father's real will, and a blood-stained handkerchief. Inspector Hale rose silently. The same pattern as the one found near the lake. Yes, Edward said. I confronted Linley about it this afternoon. He tried to deny it, but when he realized I knew everything, he panicked. He confessed. Confessed? Hale's tone was measured. Edward nodded slowly. He and Margaret quarreled that night. She threatened to expose his fraudulent past, the patients he'd mistreated, the debts he'd hidden. In his rage, he struck her. She fell, hit her head on the stone by the lake. He panicked and buried her beneath the old willow. And the fortune? Linley destroyed the real will, Edward said bitterly. But he didn't know father kept another copy hidden in the chapel ledger. He thought if he married Margaret's memory, he could control the estate. There was silence. The clock on the mantel chimed 10. And the murder of Linley himself? Hale asked. Edward looked up slowly. When I confronted him, he reached for the poker. We struggled. He fell, hit his head on the same stone by the hearth where my father's portrait hangs. Hale's expression didn't change. An accident, then? Edward gave a tired smile. I'd like to believe so. The inspector rose, putting on his coat. I imagine the coroner will have questions. But I think, Mr. Ravenscroft, that justice in one form or another has already been served. He paused at the door. One last thing. The villagers say they still see Margaret's shadow by the lake on misty nights. Edward's eyes flickered toward the window. Yes, he murmured. She never really left Ravenscroft.